My stepfather stole my $180K cabin while I was saving lives in Africa. But when I discovered his gambling debts, I reported him and now he's facing prison for real estate fraud. I'm 29 years old. I'm a volunteer nurse and I work in rural clinics in different parts of the world. And I need to tell this story because what happened a few months ago still has me processing everything. You know, it's one of those things that you just can't believe happened to you until you realize that yes, it definitely happened. The thing is that my stepfather Anthony basically tried to steal my mountain cabin, and when I say steal, I'm not exaggerating. He literally tried to sell it without my permission while I was in another country saving lives. Can you believe it? I guess I should start from the beginning so this makes sense. My mom married Anthony when I was like 16 years old, maybe 17. I don't remember exactly, but I was still a teenager. My biological father died when I was 12 inches, a car accident, and mom was alone for several years before meeting Anthony at, I don't know, some social event or something like that. At first, he seemed like a decent guy. He worked in sales or something related to insurance. He always had that professional salesman smile that now I think should have alerted me from the start, but well, I was a teenager and I basically ignored him most of the time because I was busy with my own stuff. School, my friends, that typical high school drama type of thing. The cabin is important to understand this whole story, so let me explain. When I was 23, I mean like 6 years ago, my best friend Claire and I bought a cabin in the mountains together. It was one of those things you do when you're young and you have a little money saved up and a romantic idea of having a retreat place, you know? Claire inherited some money from her grandmother and I had been saving since I started working as a nurse, and one day we were having coffee and she said, "We should buy a cabin together." And I thought, yeah, that sounds amazing. We found this perfect place, like 3 hours from the city. Nothing fancy or anything. Like a 2-bedroom cabin with a beautiful fireplace and surrounded by pine trees, with a stream nearby that you could hear from the porch. We paid $180,000 between the two of us, half and half, all legal and documented with deeds and contracts and all that because Claire works in law well. She's a legal assistant, but she knows all that stuff, and she made sure everything was perfect. Looking back, I should have seen the signs with Anthony. Seriously. Since mom married him, I started noticing weird things. Like he was always asking to borrow money. Always with some story about an investment that didn't work out, or a client who didn't pay him. Mom believed him everything, obviously, because she was in love or whatever, and I tried to stay out of it because technically it wasn't my problem. You know what I mean? But there was something about the way he was always asking about my finances, like how much I earned, if I had savings, things like that that made me feel uncomfortable but that weren't obvious enough to make family drama about it. 2 years ago, I decided to join an international medical volunteer program. Basically, you go to clinics in developing countries and help with whatever you can, from vaccination to childbirth to basic public health stuff. It's something I always wanted to do, and I finally did it. My first destination was a rural clinic in Central America, in a little town where literally the clinic was the only access to medical care they had for miles around. I was there 6 months, then came back home for a while, and then I went to Africa for another 8 months. During all that time, the cabin was still there. Claire used it sometimes with her boyfriend. I used it when I was in the country, all quiet. So I'm at this clinic in a village somewhere in Africa. I'm not going to say exactly where, because privacy and all that. Seeing patients, sleeping in a shared room with 2 other volunteers, without much internet access, except when I went to the nearest town, which was like an hour away by truck. And one day, I managed to connect to the Wi-Fi at a cafe, and I have like 15 missed calls from Anthony. 15. From Anthony, who I basically never talked to, because why would I? You know? My heart started beating fast because obviously I thought something had happened to my mom, like an accident or something serious. So I called him right away, even though the connection was terrible. He answers on the first ring and says, "Melissa, I need to talk to you about the cabin." And I'm like, "What? Are you okay? Is mom okay?" Because my mind is still in panic mode thinking something bad happened. And he says, yeah, everyone's fine, but I sold the cabin, and you need to sign some papers." I stood there in the middle of this dusty cafe with the phone glued to my ear, thinking I had heard wrong because of the horrible connection. So I said, "What did you say?" And he repeats, "I sold the cabin, I found a buyer who offered a good price, and I closed the deal. I just need you to sign the documents to finalize everything." I don't know if you've ever felt that thing where your brain just can't process what you just heard because it's so absurd. It can't be real. That's exactly what I felt. I told him, Anthony, you can't sell the cabin. It's not yours. It's mine and Claire's. And he has the nerve to say, well, technically you're my stepdaughter, so I have legal right to act on your behalf. I swear I almost threw the phone. I yelled at him, literally yelled at him in the middle of this cafe while people stared at me. You're not my father. You have no rights over my property. What the hell are you doing? He gets all defensive and starts saying he has a debt to pay, that it's urgent, that lenders are threatening him. And I say, what lenders? What are you talking about? And that's when he drops everything, like he has gambling debts, that he owes like $80,000 to dangerous people. His words, not mine. That he needs the money now or bad things are going to. I happen. And I'm there, processing that this man is basically trying to steal my property to pay his casino debts or sports betting or whatever. And I tell him, that's not my problem, Anthony. The cabin isn't for sale, period. He tries to keep arguing, but I hang up because I literally can't keep talking to him without wanting to reach through the phone and strangle him. I immediately call Claire. Thank God, she answers. And I tell her everything between sobs, because by this point I'm already crying from pure rage and shock. Claire goes into lawyer mode instantly and says, okay, calm down, breathe. This isn't legal. He can't sell without your signature and mine. We're both co-owners and we both have to approve any sale. Check the original contract. She sends me photos of the contract through WhatsApp and there it is, clear as day. Any sale or transfer of property requires written consent from both owners, meaning Claire and me. Anthony literally has no authority to do anything with that cabin. Claire says, I'm going to contact the real estate agent he mentioned. We need to stop this before it goes any further. And I tell her, I can't come back yet. I have like 3 weeks left to finish my volunteer period here, and I can't just leave everything like this because we have patients who depend on us. She says, don't worry, I'll handle it. But I need you to give me authorization to act on your behalf legally. And I tell her, whatever you need, do what you have to do. The next 3 weeks were a nightmare, seriously. I'm trying to do my work, to see patients, to keep my composure. But mentally, I'm somewhere else thinking about this absurd situation. Claire kept sending me updates when I managed to connect. She told me that Anthony had indeed found a buyer, some guy who wanted the cabin as an investment, and that Anthony had signed documents pretending to be the sole owner. Can you believe it? He forged legal information to commit fraud. Claire contacted the real estate agent, a guy named something like Richard or Robert, I don't remember, and explained the situation to him. The guy apparently turned pale when he realized that Anthony wasn't the actual owner and that the entire sale was invalid. I finally finish my volunteer work and take like 3 different flights to get home. I'm exhausted. I haven't slept well in weeks because of the stress. And the first thing I do is go straight to my mom's house because I need to confront Anthony face to face. I arrive and Mom opens the door and looks surprised to see me, like I didn't know you were back. And I tell her I need to talk to Anthony now. She knows something is wrong from my tone and lets me in, and Anthony is there sitting on the couch watching TV as if he hadn't done anything wrong. I see him and all the emotions I've been holding in for weeks just explode. I tell him, what the hell did you think you were doing trying to sell my cabin? And he has the audacity to act like I'm the irrational one. He says, I'm in a desperate situation, Melissa. I need that money. You don't understand. And I yell, I don't care how desperate you are. That's not your property. You have no right. My mom is standing there not knowing what to do, looking between the two of us, and finally says, Anthony, what did you do? And he starts telling her the whole story about the gambling debts. Turns out my mom didn't know anything about this. He had been betting in secret for years, like since before he married her, and now he owes an absurd amount of money. Mom turns pale and sits in a chair like she's been punched, and I almost feel sorry for her, but I'm too angry to process that in the moment. I tell Anthony, the sale isn't going to happen. It's illegal. What you did is fraud. And he says, I already signed a contract with the buyer. I can't back out. And I say, watch me. I leave there furious and go straight to meet Claire at a cafe. She already has a whole plan put together because she's brilliant, like, that? She shows me all the documents, the original deeds to the cabin, the co-ownership contract, the emails she exchanged with the real estate agent, everything. The agent apparently cooperated completely when he realized he had been deceived. He showed Claire all the documents that Anthony had signed, and in all of them, Anthony pretended to be the sole owner. Claire had already consulted with her boss at the law firm where she works, and he gave her advice on how to proceed. The first thing we did was send a cease and desist letter to Anthony, basically a legal document that says stop everything you're doing or we're going to sue you to infinity. We also contacted the buyer directly, a man about 50 years old who honestly seemed as surprised as everyone that the sale was fraudulent, and we explained the situation to him. The guy was super understanding, said he just wanted to buy a cabin for his family and didn't want to be involved in any legal drama, so he agreed to cancel the deal immediately. But we didn't want to leave it at that, you know? Anthony tried to commit fraud. He forged documents. He tried to steal our property. Claire insisted that we should report him to the police, and I initially had doubts because he's my mom's husband and all that. But then I thought, no, this isn't right. There have to be consequences. So we went to the local police station and filed a formal complaint. The detective who attended us was named Collins, a guy about 40-something years old with a face like he'd seen all kinds of things. And when we told him the story, he leaned back in his chair and said, "This isn't the first case like this I've seen. People do desperate things for money." He asked us a bunch of questions, reviewed all our documents, contacted the real estate agent to corroborate the story, and basically opened an official investigation. The following weeks were weird. My mom would call me crying, telling me how could I do this to the family, that Anthony made a mistake but didn't deserve to go to prison. And I tried to explain to her that he literally tried to rob me, but she was so focused on defending him that she couldn't see reality. It's sad, honestly, because I love my mom and I don't want her to suffer. But I also can't let Anthony get away with this just because he's married to her. Detective Collins did an amazing job. He gathered all the evidence, talked to the real estate agent who confirmed that Anthony had lied about being the sole owner, obtained copies of the forged documents that Anthony had signed, everything. About 3 weeks into the investigation, Anthony was formally charged with real estate fraud and attempted theft, something like that. I don't remember the exact legal terms, but basically serious charges that could send him to prison if he was found guilty. The buyer had already officially canceled the transaction by that point. He returned any documents he had related to the sale, and the cabin was still officially ours, Claire's, and mine. But the whole process was emotionally exhausting. Like I was still processing that my stepfather had tried to steal from me, that he had lied and manipulated and committed crimes to get out of his gambling problems. Anthony eventually hired a lawyer. I don't know how he paid for that, considering he was supposedly bankrupt from his debts, but whatever. His lawyer tried to negotiate, offered that Anthony would make restitution or whatever, but the prosecutor, the case went to a district prosecutor, wasn't interested in soft deals. Apparently, Anthony had a history of debts and financial problems that we didn't know about, so it wasn't like this was his first rodeo with questionable behavior. The case is still in legal process right now. It's been like 4 months since we filed the charges. Anthony is out on bail. He still lives with my mom, although I don't know what that dynamic is like because honestly, I've kept my distance. My mom has finally started to accept the reality of the situation. The last time I talked to her, she told me she understood why I did what I did, although she's still devastated by everything. I told her I was sorry, but I don't regret reporting Anthony, because what he did was wrong, period. Claire and I went to the cabin like 2 weeks ago. The first time we'd been back since all this drama. We needed to see the place, make sure everything was okay, and honestly, we also needed that space to process everything. We arrived on a Friday afternoon. The place was exactly as I remembered it. The pine trees around, the sound of the stream, the peace I always felt there. We sat on the porch with a bottle of wine cheap, but it did its job. And Claire told me, "I can't believe we almost lost this." And I said, "I know. I still feel weird about all this." We spent the weekend there cleaning, organizing, doing small repairs that the place needed. Claire suggested we renovate a bit, like paint the walls, change some old furniture, make it feel fresh and new after all the drama. I agreed. It felt like we needed to reclaim the space, you know? Make it ours again without the shadow of Anthony and everything he tried to do. We're planning to spend more time there now. Like really make it our refuge. I'm probably going to go volunteer again in a few months. There's a clinic in Southeast Asia that needs staff. But before that, I want to enjoy the cabin. Make new memories that replace this horrible experience. And the thing is, I learned something from all this. And it's nothing profound or anything, but it's real. I learned that you have to defend what's yours, even when that means going against family. I learned that some people, no matter how close they are to you, are going to prioritize their own needs over everything else, and you can't let them take advantage of you just because they share your last name or are married to your mom. And I learned that having friends like Claire, people who back you up and help you fight your battles, that's invaluable. I don't know what's going to happen with Anthony legally. His hearing is scheduled for 2 months from now, and he could end up with prison time or probation or something in between. Honestly, I don't care that much anymore. I mean, obviously I hope there's justice and all that, but I've stopped consuming my energy thinking about him. The cabin is safe. That's what matters. My relationship with my mom is damaged but not destroyed, and I guess with time we can repair that. Or maybe not. And that's okay too. A few days ago, Claire sent me photos of the paint colors she's considering for the cabin's living room, like light blues and soft greens, colors that match the mountain environment. I told her they seemed perfect. We're thinking about having a small gathering there next month, invite some close friends, have a barbecue, celebrate that we managed to keep our place. It's going to be nice, I think, to have that cabin filled with laughter and people we love, instead of being associated with all this legal and family drama. And that's basically it, I guess. My stepfather tried to steal my cabin to pay his gambling debts. I reported him to the police, and now I'm trying to move on with my life while the legal system does its thing. It's not the fairy tale ending that people like to hear. Like there's no emotional reconciliation or universal forgiveness or anything like that, but it's reality. Sometimes family disappoints you in ways you never imagined, and the only thing you can do is protect yourself and move forward. The cabin is still mine and Claire's, and that's enough for now.